Yes, folks, a judge in Australia has just granted the release of a dangerous sex offender and allowed him to use welfare payments to hire prostitutes. Yes, it's impossible to believe, but it's true. Perpetrators these days are somehow the victims. Don't ask me why this is happening, but it's happening more and more these days. Now take Jussie Smollett, for example. The guy staged a hate crime that could have caused race riots right across America, yet the guy walks away scot-free. Anyway, today I'll show you a couple of more examples of stupid decisions that have been made, starting with a judge in Australia. Have a look. Judge grants Edward Latimer permission to see sex workers. A dangerous sex offender will be allowed to use Centrelink payments, welfare payments, to see prostitutes following a decision branded a kick in the guts for victims of abuse. Kick in the guts? You don't say. Western Australia's Attorney General has refused to intervene in a dangerous sex offender's release from prison and permission to visit sex workers in a bid to reduce his risk of reoffending. Edward William Latimer, 61, had been imprisoned indefinitely until a WA Supreme Court judge ruled on Tuesday he could be freed under a 10-year supervision order with 52 conditions, including no alcohol or porn, and no access to sex workers without approval. He will be released within 21 days. Access to sex workers will not of itself resolve the issue of the respondent's ability to manage his sexual urges, but the option for the respondent to engage in regular, albeit infrequent, sexual contact should serve as an additional protective factor, Judge Anthony Derrick said in his judgment. Now, this is the sex offender here. Under the terms of his release, Latimer effectively cannot be alone with women, and the sex workers issue came up after he asked whether he could approach prostitutes. In the 61-page judgment, a psychiatrist who spoke with Latimer said if the sex offender could see prostitutes, it would offer some protection. While a psychiatrist admitted seeing prostitutes was not a bulletproof solution, she did suggest he receive help budgeting his Centrelink benefits to pay for them. Oh, God. The psychiatrist said, with the help of budgeting, he should be able to afford to see sex workers monthly. So there you go, folks. You taxpayers are paying for his monthly sex. You're paying for this freak to get his rocks off once a month. Now, folks, if that's not sick, I don't know what is. That is really, really disgusting. Yeah, so folks, if a sex offender can get taxpayer-funded prostitutes, I don't think you'll be surprised by the following story.
She was poisoned by her husband.
Brian was trying to kill me to keep his comfortable life from slipping away.
Emotional moments in court and a controversial sentence in Macomb County. We'll start there. Good to have you with us today on Local 4 News at 5. A Macomb man pleaded guilty to poisoning his wife, and he was in court to be sentenced today.
It's important to know before you hear this story that the maximum penalty for this crime is 15 years in prison. Let's bring in Jason Colthorpe for what was an intense sentencing, Jason.
Yeah, it sure was. And more important to know, guys, the minimum sentence guideline here was more than a year in prison. What you need to know is Brian Kozlowski and his wife were still living together but going through a divorce. It had gotten so bad, she said he actually urinated in her shampoo and conditioner bottles, but she soon learned he was also poisoning her. After 29 years together, 22 married, Brian Kozlowski's wife filed for divorce in May of 2018. 2 months later, she started noticing symptoms of blurred vision and feeling very tired on days where her husband made the coffee. She even had a near crash on 375 when she dozed off at the wheel during rush hour. So she installed cameras and saw this. Her then husband mixing in the equivalent of 8 sleeping pills into the coffee pot.
I felt a horrible coldness in the air, as if I was being hunted by a dangerous predator. But in this nightmare, the predator was Brian. I fell to my knees and cried. I could barely move.
She also revealed a chilling conversation with her daughter, who told her she too drank the coffee one morning and drove 30 minutes to work.
She was able to make it to her desk, only to immediately fall asleep for 2 hours. Brian had successfully poisoned his own daughter and set her on a path that could have killed her that morning.
Deeply like to apologize.
And then came the sentence, for which the guideline was a minimum of 1.5 years in prison.
And if he comes back in society as a hardened criminal, what have I done? Nothing.
I'll just play that again for you, folks.
And if he comes back in society as a hardened criminal, what have I done? Nothing.
So there you go, folks. The victim is somehow, no, sorry, the criminal is somehow the victim. This guy does not want to send this perpetrator to jail simply because he might come back as a hardened criminal. Wow.
Judge Anthony Viviano then stunned the court, sentencing Kozlowski to 5 years probation and 60 days in jail to be served on weekends.
60 days in jail to be served on weekends. For attempted murder, 60 days in jail to be served on weekends, because attempted murder is pretty much exactly what it is.
The people are requesting that you reconsider the sentence. A 60-day weekend sentence is a slap in the face.
I'm sorry, what?
The 60-day weekend-only sentence.
Counsel, I do not let anybody speak after I've issued a judgment.
So no one can challenge his ruling. My God, a lovely judge.
And that's where it ended. It's also important to know this wasn't a one-time thing. This had happened with the coffee several times. Now, Macomb County prosecutor, very upset, as you might imagine. He said this about the sentence. It's almost as though the judge is more concerned with the defendant's freedom than he is with the safety of the victim.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did the judge give any indication what pushed for the lighter sentence? Why?
You know, one of the things he said leading up to this was curious. He said anyone who tries to influence the sentence is acting improperly, which he didn't direct at anyone specifically. But yesterday, prosecutor Eric Smith put out a press release kind of demanding prison time or else they would appeal the sentence. So he kind of threw that out there. You don't know if the judge was talking to him. Don't try and push me to do what you want to do. And then he made the sentence.
I think a lot of people would be surprised at what the maximum sentence was, just 15 years, and obviously didn't get anywhere close to what the maximum.
Just amazing, and to hear what it did to that family.
Yeah,
Yes.
really.
Yeah, now folks, I'm not sure exactly what crime was committed there, but surely if a person drugged someone with sleeping pills, knowing the person was going to drive, that must be considered attempted murder. And 60 days for that is absolutely beyond me.